Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, and for the first time in your life, you feel zero pressure to impress anyone. No need to prove yourself. No need to over-explain. No need to shrink. No need to read the room. You just show up as you. What would actually change? How much of your personality would still be there if you stopped managing how you're perceived? Pause with that for a second. Because most people don't realize this, but they're not really living their lives. They are performing them. From childhood, we're subtly trained to shape ourselves around expectations that weren't even ours to begin with. We learn which emotions are too much, which dreams are realistic, which parts of us need to chill out if we want to be accepted. And slowly, almost without noticing, we build a personality optimized for approval. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If your worth depends on how other people see you, you will never feel steady. You'll always be adjusting, always scanning, always low-key overthinking. And that constant mental editing? It's exhausting. So what if everything you've been taught about caring, about reputation, image, fitting in, is actually the thing draining you? What if the secret to real confidence isn't trying harder, but letting go? Today, we're exploring a radical idea inspired by Michel de Montaigne, a philosopher who was way ahead of his time, whose reflections line up almost perfectly with modern psychology and even Jungian shadow work. And here's the core insight. The moment you stop chasing external validation, your life starts lining up in ways you didn't expect. If this already resonates, subscribe to the Mind Kit, because we're not here to perform. We're here to reclaim ourselves. Let's go deeper. Carl Jung talked about the persona, the social mask we wear to survive and belong. And honestly, it makes sense. You had to adapt. You had to fit in. You had to read the room. But the problem starts when the mask becomes the identity. You say yes when you really mean no. You water down your opinions to keep things smooth. You replay conversations at 2 a.m., wondering if you sounded weird. Sound familiar? Montaigne noticed this centuries ago. He saw how people become prisoners of imagined judgment. We're not just afraid of being disliked. We're afraid of being misunderstood. We're afraid of being excluded. But here's the deeper layer. Sometimes we're not afraid of other people rejecting us. We're afraid of facing our own shadow, the parts of us that are messy, ambitious, emotional, unconventional. So we tuck them away. But here's the thing about suppressed parts. They don't disappear. They wait. And the more you shape yourself around approval, the more disconnected you feel from who you actually are. This is where anxiety creeps in. This is where quiet resentment builds. This is where that weird emptiness shows up, even when everything looks fine on paper. Stay with me. This is where it starts getting real. Let me ask you something. Think about the most confident person you know. Are they constantly defending themselves? Are they trying hard to be liked? Are they over-explaining every decision? Probably not. They have this calm, grounded energy, almost unbothered. Not careless, not lazy, just solid. That's detachment. Montaigne understood something powerful. The less you feel the need to prove yourself, the stronger you become. Because when you stop performing, you save energy. When you stop over-explaining, your words hit different. When you stop fearing judgment, you move freely. And here's the wild part. The more you release the need for validation, the more magnetic you become. Why? Because authenticity is rare. Psychologically, we trust people who are congruent, whose inner world matches their outer behavior. That alignment feels safe. And safety is attractive. Confidence isn't loud. It's steady. If this perspective is hitting home, take a second to like the video. It helps this message reach people who are still stuck trying to win rooms they were never meant to shrink for. Now let's go even deeper. Most anxiety doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from trying to control what might happen. We resist uncertainty. We resist imperfection. We resist not knowing how things will play out. Montaigne believed striving for total control is one of humanity's biggest self-made traps. And modern psychology backs that up. When you try to micromanage outcomes, other people's reactions, timing, success, how you're perceived, your nervous system stays on edge. You're always bracing. But here's the paradox. The tighter you grip life, the more tense it feels. The more you try to control people, the more disconnected you become. The more you force outcomes, the more frustrated you feel. But when you loosen your grip, something shifts. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of prove. You live instead of manage. And that shift, it changes everything. Let's bring Jung in for a second. Often, the need for validation hides a deeper fear. What if I'm not enough? That belief usually starts early. Be good. Don't be dramatic. Make us proud. Don't embarrass us. So we internalize a quiet rule. Love must be earned. Approval must be secured. But shadow work asks a bold question. What parts of yourself did you abandon just to be accepted? Your anger? Your ambition? Your sensitivity? Your desire to say no? When you constantly seek approval, you exile pieces of your psyche. And exiled parts don't stay quiet forever. They show up as tension, as burnout, as quiet emptiness. This is why people can look successful on the outside and still feel hollow inside. Because success without integration feels empty. Montaigne gently reminds us, stop trying to win the crowd. Start meeting yourself. If this resonates, drop a comment. I choose authenticity. Let's normalize being real. Here's something that might surprise you. Detachment doesn't make you distant. It makes your relationships healthier. When you stop needing constant validation, you stop suffocating people with expectations. When you stop fearing abandonment, you stop overpleasing. When you stop trying to control reactions, you create space for real intimacy. Most conflict doesn't come from love. It comes from insecurity. Montaigne noticed how exhausting it is to constantly manage other people's behavior. But true connection starts when you let people be who they are, without trying to tweak them into your comfort zone. Acceptance replaces anxiety. Curiosity replaces defensiveness. Presence replaces performance. And relationships feel lighter. Less drama. More depth. There's a strange pattern in life. The moment you stop desperately chasing something, it often finds you. Why? Because desperation feels tight. Detachment feels open. When you're not anxiously grasping, your energy changes. You take smarter risks. You make clearer decisions. You attract opportunities that actually match who you are. Creativity flows when you stop obsessing over likes. Love deepens when you stop fearing loss. Success expands when you stop chasing status. This isn't magic. It's nervous system regulation. You function better in safety than in fear. And detachment creates internal safety. Subscribe to the Mind Kit channel, because we're not here to perform. We're here to reclaim ourselves. Perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Fear of being exposed. Montaigne openly wrote about his flaws. He didn't pretend to have it all figured out. Why? Because perfection is a comparison game. And comparison will drain you every time. When you stop caring about being flawless, you start being real. When you stop fearing mistakes, you grow faster. When you stop needing everyone to get you, you start getting yourself. And that's freedom. The past? Memory. The future? Projection. Right now? Reality. Yet most people live stuck in replay mode or worst-case scenario mode. Montaigne reminds us, this moment is the only thing you actually own. And when you stop obsessing over perception and outcomes, you come back here, to breath, to sensation, to presence. Inner freedom isn't dramatic. It's subtle. It feels like this. I don't have to prove anything. And that sentence alone can change your entire life. So why don't more people let go? Because letting go feels risky. It feels like losing control. But control was never solid to begin with. It was just comfort pretending to be certainty. Here's the truth. When you stop caring about the wrong things, the right things start showing up. When you stop proving, you become powerful. When you stop chasing approval, you become authentic. When you stop resisting uncertainty, you find peace. Montaigne didn't teach indifference. He taught selective care. Care deeply about your values. Care deeply about your growth. Care deeply about your inner stability. Release the rest. If this gave you clarity, subscribe to the Mind Kit. We're not here for hype. We're here for real transformation. Finally, tonight, ask yourself, what expectations am I carrying that aren't even mine? Who would I be if I trusted myself fully? Because the moment you stop caring about external validation, you stop performing, and you start living. And that's freedom.